everybody. It's Miss Jen. You guys are familiar with Talkin' Shop, and we've been bringing you some really spectacular creators to talk to recently. And we know you guys are all here and super excited. Give us just a second, and we'll get right after it. Everybody, and welcome into Talkin' Shop here on The Experience, where we like to give you the heads up for comic books that are coming out this week or very soon so that you can get with your local comic shop and make sure that they have enough to put into your box. To that end, we've got two majorly cool books that are hitting your LCS on Wednesday, and we're going to talk about those. The newly launched awesome comic book company, Frank Miller Presents. So let's bring in the group that is doing Ancient Enemies. Really awesome title that is going to be on the stands.
Hey, Jen, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing so good. So thank you so much for sending over the advanced copy. It was as awesome as I was hoping for.
Good. You know we're all nervous, right? You realize that.
We're all smiling, like
we're all smiling, but we're all nervous. I heard Danilo's been anxious for the last few days.
Anxious enemies.
So is it like that for you guys, where you create something? I'm sure everyone I've talked to that's an artist, creator, or writer, that it's been in your head for so long, and you've been working on it for so long, and you've gone over and over it, that you guys probably see flaws that may or may not exist at this point. That we're all along for the ride. It's like watching a play, right? We don't know what's really supposed to happen on the stage. We're relying on you guys to say whether that was right or wrong. So,
well, I'll start with this one because actually I've been sitting with this for a while, and you're absolutely right. I've got my copies, and the hard part is I haven't gotten the copies yet to Joe and Danilo yet. I actually have to ship them in. They just got here, so you've actually seen the book before they have in some way. But for me, you're right. You sit there and you look at it, and you've been thinking about it so much, and it's such a large, expansive story with so many characters, pieces moving inside and out, and you wanted to make it as flow as easily as possible and make each of the characters engaged and explain them without over explaining them. So you get very nervous to make sure you got that right mix going forward. We actually probably started with the hardest project to start with, which is really world building from the ground up, an entirely new world with an entire concept. But honestly, this is where I lean on Danilo. It's his visual sense and storytelling that makes this all possible. As soon as I saw what he was able to do and how he laid the story out, it all came together and it all started to flow, and the characters came alive in my mind just because of the energy that it brought to the page. And then what's been great with Joe is that it's such a rock for me for so long, from the days of DC to here. And both of us, this is the weird spot for Jim and I. Yeah. Joe is this incredibly accomplished inker, and yet he's really been, for me, the businessman also. He's been the organizer of talent and really the one that's been a focal point, really taking so much great talent from Brazil and bringing it into the United States. So for us too, we're sort of exposed. I was an executive. Joe's out there penciling now too, to supporting Danilo, working with Danilo. And honestly, I think that's where all the jitters are coming from. It's like, there's no escape hatch. We're standing here exposed with the material we're doing, and but you have enough faith and belief in it that you can't wait for people to see it. So it's been a fun experience. It's kind of crazy, but a lot of fun.
Danilo, talk a little bit about the process, like you guys working together on this completely original, never before seen world and storytelling. What was your process working together about that?
Well, then we have talked a lot about the project. And there's a lot of world building. It's something I have already done in my projects here in Brazil. I'm used to it. I like it. The world building. It's a challenge, but then has given me a lot of freedom to create and to accomplish what he has in his mind for the project. So it's been a lot of fun. It's a huge project. It's there is a big story, but there are a lot of smaller stories for each of the characters. So it's something I'm not quite yet used to, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've noticed that there is a lot of exposition in this first issue, which I really love. Joe, you want to speak to kind of like the difficulties of making sure that there's still action that occurs on the page, even though it's really a lot of people kind of like you have to get to know your characters, and so you really do have a lot of talking.
Oh, I think that the whole thing that Dan and Danilo created here, okay, because I'm just for now I'm the inker on the covers and I'm the artist on the coming soon backup stories, okay, and I help the whole process, to streamline the whole process, so I think that the greatest thing is seeing these two crazy guys, okay, like creating stuff, okay, because then it's like he's a force of nature, okay, like, hey, like let's do this. He's passionate about it, and I think it really relates directly with the Frank Miller, brand, name, and also Danilo. For years, he has been one of my closest friends, but also one of the most prolific creators here in Brazil. Okay, so he's not just an artist. He won several awards as a writer as well, and seeing those two combining their strengths, it's awesome because, Dan writes everything Marvel style, very open, and seeing Danilo translating all that to the pages, and no balloons, okay, just the roughs, of the pages, and you can already read the story. It means that you have something really special going on there, and that makes me so happy, and honored to see that happening.
And I'm going to add to that too, because honestly, when I turn in the outline, I'm not even doing a page-by-page breakdown for Danilo. I'm just giving him a story, and he's actually breaking out the page counts and laying it out in his own fashion, which it's fascinating to watch. And when you see the art come in better than you imagined it, more expressive and more exciting and more visual, it just reminds you about the importance of the collaboration aspect of comics, about the writer and artist working together to really elevate the material. And what's great about the storytelling is that the storytelling is so strong, then your dialogue and your captions and all that are just additive. They're adding to the story. You don't have to explain the story. You're giving the context from the world. You're getting a chance to give dialogue that gives better creation for the characters behind the scenes. And because of that, it comes alive. And every one of those characters is becoming a person to me now, which is because of the strength of the artwork. I can see them. I know how they're acting, their behavior, their stance, their attitude. And it even reminds me of an early conversation I had with Jim Lee way back when. And Jim was discussing X-Men to me. And he was talking about his drawing X-Men. Because we always used to sit there and chat all the time. And Jim's talking about X-Men. And he said it was so important for him for every character to be doing something different, even if they're just standing in a room. Somebody has a drink, someone is sitting, someone is standing, someone is smoking, someone's looking away, somebody looks angry. Everybody has to have a different emotion, a different feeling, because that helps brings them individuality and personality to them. And I see a lot of that in Danilo's work. There's a lot of attitude in the characters. And you start to write to the attitude he's putting to them, because you can look at them standing and you might have had a thought in mind of what they were going to say, but you could tell this is not what it's about. And there's this incredible sequence which we have this character called Mr. Gruntle, who's an empath. And ultimately he's taking in all the energy of all the characters on the, happy birthday, Rich. Anyway, if I saw that right. But he's taking all the energy, all the emotional energy from everybody, and he can't handle it. And I was so worried about that scene. I was so worried about how it was going to be drawn because it could be really silly. But the way Danilo did it, honestly, I'm going to say it to you right now. It felt like a Steve Ditko comic, which is exactly what I hoped it to be. It was the Steve Ditko moment where the entire world explodes around this guy, and he's just, you could see just the havoc that it's causing. And once you get into the colors, and I was hoping Alex Sinclair was going to join us, but unfortunately, he's in Japan right now, so I don't think he was able to come in with us. But Alex brought so much energy in the coloring and style, and really just elevated it. And you constantly see every time somebody touches this book, it just gets better and better. And
I think that Alex brought his expertise on board, and he kind of reinvented himself to color this book, which was awesome because Danilo's style is totally different, right? Then from everything else that he was used to color.
Yeah. And that's actually part of the whole Frank Miller Presents thing, is that a lot of things we're trying to do is go back to some of the basics that we know work so well and then reinvent them a little bit for today's audience. So it's not to say we're regressing, but it's going back to what we know works and then building on that, building off a strong foundation of what we believe made strong comics in its own time. So again, it allows us to really have a very strong foundation to be working on when we're building this book.
I do have to say that there's a conversation that happens in, I don't know, it's probably a third through the book. It's just a very calm conversation, but it's so charged because it's between what appears to be someone who used to, or like founded a company and has been kind of like displaced from her place of power. And that like salty conversation was just so wonderful. I mean, there's no action there, but there's so much. It sets up everything that you need to know about the relationship for those characters moving forward. It's such a brilliant writing.
I'm sorry, I lost you guys for a couple of seconds there. So if there's something really nice being said, I'd love to hear it again.
Dan, I was talking about the quiet conversation that's just full of tension between the woman who quite clearly founded this organization or company and has been displaced. That is just it's perfect character building, right? Because it tells you everything you need to know about both of those characters.
Yeah. And what's a lot of fun about it is that as I started to see this, we were also doing, Joe's being modest again because Joe's doing so much to help me push this project forward, including helping us find the right talent and the right people to help work on this, plus doing the backups, which are really important because not only that, Danilo would have a nervous breakdown if he had to draw 48 every 2 months. But we have a series of backups coming in. The first one in issue 2, Frank's actually stepping on board to do a backup with the geek character that he created. So we have that going on. That's a fun addition. And then after that, we're getting into characters like the Wraith and Son and the Greater Good in small backups. And then we're spinning them off into one-shots in the off months between issues to help even flesh those stories out more. And Joe will be penciling one of those, at least, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the backup. So we heavily involved in everything going on here, as much as he wants to be humble about it.
So do we want to think about them like these offshoots, the backups, as kind of like the way, like we'll just say Marvel does the TV shows versus the movies? Like this allows us to really dig into a specific character.
Yeah. There's always that through line in the story, and we take that little thread and we throw it to the back of the book and we flesh it out a little bit more. It adds to the characters. It doesn't really, it's so essential to the main through line, but it adds to who the characters are, so you understand a lot of their behind the scenes motivation. And the ones that I'm latching onto the most right now is the storyline between the character, the Wraith, which is Rosemary Reed, who is this long-term hero and the hard edge on everything she's ever done. She's reunited with her son after she believed he had been dead for almost a decade. And there's a lot of tension between the two. And then ultimately, both of them decide to put on the Wraith suit and become the hero, the Wraith. And there's a lot of tension between the two. And then ultimately, they come to an understanding, which will be leading us into one of the backups, which is called Wraith and Son, which is, I think, the first one Joe's working on right now. Yeah.
It's gonna be fun, like flexing those muscles again, for some years, the last time that I drew a story, it was with Jeff, for Jeff on Geiger special. And now doing this, it's gonna be so cool and so special, for me, and being published on a book with my friends and under Frank Miller. Come on.
Yeah.
The little geek in me, like, come on. It's just like, every time we talk to Frank, it's like, come on, this is so surreal.
Yeah. We had this wonderful dinner during New York Comic Con with everybody who's involved in Frank Miller Presents, and it was, for me, I was on the adult table, which was the ones we talk business, and Danilo and Joe are the kid table with Frank.
And Philip and Daniel too. No, we were talking technique, and talking about storytelling and how to draw this and that, how not to draw this and that. Like that's surreal,
So give everybody a kind of an insight to that table discussion. What did you guys talk about, so that like artists that are listening can be inspired by something you guys sussed out together in that miraculous night?
I think that only watching Frank speaking about how he handles comics, how he perceives comics, is like a masterclass, and it's inspiring, On the Monday after New York Comic Con, we had the pleasure and the honor to go to his studio, okay, and talk to him, and see him working, and that was so inspiring, right, Danilo?
Yeah.
And
we saw a few pages on lying around that impressed all of us.
Like Dark Knight art, there, like, no, this can't be here. Like, come on. It's ridiculous for us, and being able to do this is so amazing.
Yeah.
And also seeing Danilo next to Frank, on his art table. And Frank was flipping through Danilo's books in Portuguese. Okay? The books that he wrote.
That got me scared a lot.
And he was like, no, this is great. This is what I'm talking about. Like, and Danilo was like happy like this. Frozen.
I'm a little too respectful. I just freeze because Frank Miller is like the foundation of my comic book school, so I can even talk sometimes.
So most everybody that has been following the birth of this great new company has picked up the ash can, so they've gotten a little bit of taste. So for Ancient Enemies specifically, the story that you get, the bite that you get in that book, feels like you get all totally new content for the issue number 1. Where does the ash can content fit in the timeline of that universe?
Oh, that's the Zero book. So basically, if you follow the timeline, the events of the series that takes place in a galaxy far away. And the story moves to Earth with the crash of this alien ship on Earth. That story is that moment, and ultimately the timeline is everything from 20 years on. But we'll be going back and forth. There's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of breaking the timeline, going back and forth as we're explaining who the characters are and a little bit about them. And each character's backstory is revealed a little bit at a time, because we want to keep that mystery of where they are, but they show that level of interconnection on how everybody is. And that one single defining moment, which is the ship crashing, is the one thing that all stories rotate around. And what happens after everybody is in their own individual stories as we move forward. So there's a lot of fun that's going on there. I love things that foreshadow events and you go back in time to show the context of it. Just gives you that whole, really just this lyrical sense of what's happening in the world around you and how we got to the place we're in right now. Because it was very important for us not to have a dystopic future. That was the one thing we said. All we see is these destroyed world and everything's beaten down. Quite honestly, it's a little, there's a weird dichotomy, is that we had this alien crash with millions of people who died in the crash as it wipes out the eastern seaboard. Yet the first thing we see is this brilliant, bright, shining, gleaming new city that is really the harbinger of a better future. And you wonder, how did I go from this horrible place to this wonderful place? And how we connect those dots and how we reveal how wonderful the place is going to be the fun part of it, because there's multiple levels of discussion and conflict going on. It's the two alien races fighting. It's these two cities in the eastern seaboard that rose out of the ashes. One is benefited from it, one has suffered because of it, and ultimately what the conflict is in there. And then we get down to a very personal level with the individual characters and how they're in conflict with each other, as family, as friends, and just as competitors. And so therefore you just show that regardless of what's going on, there's always going to be conflict between people, and the challenge of what is the right choice, what is the right direction, who made the right decisions is really what's behind the whole story.
Yeah, and it puts together perfectly all the main storylines, the tropes that we love, right? The haves versus the have-nots, and really, like, just like the title is, this is about a big ancient grudge match that at some point these people don't even know why they're fighting with each other.
That's my favorite part, because I believe that's the case in real life too. You always hear about these horrible stories about these embedded hatreds in people. And honestly, if you see it, people, you can ask them what motivated or what started this conflict. And some people might start scratching their head. They're not sure why they hate. They just do. And that's something that's really interesting for story potential. And you want to go peel back the layers and see where their emotions disconnected from reality, and ultimately try to reconsider what they're doing and reconsidering their actions. And that's part of what a lot of these characters are doing. They're going to be forced to challenge their own beliefs, because once they start to explore the meaning behind them, they realize how ridiculous some of their choices are and why they're upset, what the things they're upset about. And I'm looking forward to doing that with these characters, because I think we have a great construction here. And so when we did the Ashcan, we wanted to set the table. And what was the most important part of the Ashcan for me was actually my working relationship with Danilo. And I started that story very structured, because there was a real cutting back and forth between two different worlds. And I wanted to show how similar and different they were at the same time. But when Danilo took over with his layouts, once we got back to Earth, the story just sang to me. It was just so much better and I felt that what I gave him in the beginning was too stiff and too structured in a weird way, because his art was so open and so fluid and everything that I wanted to see in comics, that ultimately I just knew to go hands off and just let him go with it. And what you said before, when we talked about tropes and things of that nature, this is going to be the most traditional superhero book that's going to come out of Frank Miller Presents in its own way. But it's not it's not a hero versus villain book. It's just people making choices that can be construed in any direction possible. And I think that's where a lot of the storytelling has evolved into right now, is that blurry line between good and evil, right and wrong, and the choices that people make. And we see this all the time, and it's a lot of fun to examine that. And I really want the readers to be choosing who's on the right side and who's not on the right side. I think that's fun, because ultimately you're going to see a lot of different choices in here that you sympathize and recognize, but might not agree with. And I think that's what compels people to think about what they're reading and get excited about what's going on and try to anticipate what's about to happen next.
Oh, absolutely. Danilo, can you speak a little bit to what Dan was talking about the having to create very distinct looks for the parts of the city that are quite clearly doing better in this, time-lapsed interaction with these new people that have arrived?
Well, truth is, I don't read minds. Yeah, as you can see, Dan talks a lot, so I'm good of hearing. So
it's like our panel in New York. Come on.
Yeah. So if he sends smaller scripts, truth is he has talked about this world before, so it's not on the script, but we have talked about it. So just to make clear, I'm not I'm not such a huge mind reader. But one of the first things that I love was that sequence that Dan created, that he is talking bad about. That parallel sequence at the beginning of the Ashcan, I love doing that. I think it got very cool, and we were able to create very distinct races to put one against the other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe, did I see some? Are you doing the special covers?
I'm doing the inks over Danilo, on all the covers, and I'm doing one of the one shots, right? Then
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. So
First was
do you
fun.
want me to show the inks of those covers?
Sure. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Hey, Dan, can I show the Gene covers?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Awesome.
You got that's because that's one that you guys both worked on together. And honestly, these were initial concepts that just was so strong. We turned them into covers.
Okay, I'm gonna share. Let's see if
you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think so. It's the same thing when I teach for Cuber School. Okay.
Oh wow.
Okay, so let's see this. So this is the cover for issue 1. Okay.
Beautiful.
And it was a blast to do. Okay. This is the cover for issue 2.
Right.
Where we see the geek for the first time. And Rosemary Heed here. I
look forward to the first cosplay of the geek.
Oh,
That's
gonna be something.
As you can tell, the geek is one of Frank's designs. That was Frank's addition to the series. Was putting the geek into the book, and I'm having a blast with him right now. He's going to be. This is on my Beauty and the Beast moment here, so we're going to have some fun with it.
Okay, so this is the cover for. Can I show issue 3 cover?
Sure, that's one of my faves.
Yeah, mine too. Hang on, this one. Oh,
there you go. That's in the next catalog. Yeah. That's Big Sister and the Genie in a diner. She basically meets him in one of the previous issues, gets a little bit of a crush, and they go to meet in a diner one time. And you can see there's this really awkward sensibility of what's happening here. The fact that she's can't get under 10 feet tall, and he's just sitting across the table trying to figure out what he's doing there. And in the background, it's a reminder that he has that creature that's residing inside him that could break out at any time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, here is the creature. Okay. So
you're having fun. There he is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the Genie. Can't really bottle them all up too much. But like
yeah.
you said, we're having a lot of fun with it. And these, like I said, these are the Danilo's designs, and they're spot on for everything he wanted the book to be.
And
spoil something for me.
And the variant. Can I show the variant as well?
Sure. Well, that's the variant cover for the Genie, number 1. Yeah.
So this is what he turns into.
Yeah.
You will see.
Does he follow the normal rules for Jin? Cannot be trusted?
Not really. The high concept is that it's really an energy creature, and it's the spirit of the initial combatant that came crashing to Earth. The energy of his body was kept alive, and it's latched himself onto this child and basically lives within him. So there's a real symbiotic relationship between the two. And ultimately, he's the one forcing the boy to take on the fight, so to speak, on his behalf. So that's how he gets pulled into the conflict, and that's what the Genie is. So the Genie is actually one of the combatants from the two worlds.
And how did you guys decide that this was the launch title that you wanted to have this one? Well, I guess you have 2 of them coming out at the same time, but you wanted to get this one out of the barn right away.
Well, for the Genie one shot, it was important to come out first because the story lays out that there was 2 ships that crashed to Earth. One large ship that took out the eastern seaboard. Another one disappeared into the Pacific. The genie's born of the one that was lost in the Pacific, and it's this very coveted thing that everybody's hunting. So the fact that he's coming from the ship, they sort of figuring out where it is now, and they're going hunting for the ship, and he has to prevent that from happening. Plus, also there were other things on the ship that start to leak their way into society and ultimately become a big risk along the way too. So there's a lot of things happening, because as you would expect, when 2 worlds that have been fighting for a millennium decide to choose single combatants to resolve their conflict, both sides are going to cheat immensely. So you'll see that. So that's one of the reasons why the ships crash. And another thing is that there's things inside the ship to ensure that if their champion lost, something else bad would happen along the way. So there's each one of these ships were ticking bombs in their own right. And now that the conflict has reignited with these characters, these heroes starting to rise, ultimately the ships have become weapons unto their own right, and are a threat to society.
And you guys have made the decision to make more pages per book coming out, more spread out.
Yeah.
How did you guys, what was the decision-making process?
Decision was Danilo needed 64 pages to tell the story.
Very organic.
We're going to be honest about that one. I didn't want to cut anything. I felt everything was important. He goes, I need 64 pages. Done. But every other book is going to be 48 pages. They're bi-monthly. And that's why we're dropping these little one-shots in between just to keep the flow going. But all the Frank Miller Presents books are bi-monthly, which is important to say. So when you see Ronin, that'll be bi-monthly. But we wanted really to use the proper cage count to tell the proper story. We're a little more structured as we go down, because the artists need that flexibility. They need some sort of, the ability to manage the pages, to deliver on time, because we want to make sure we're always on time with our books. But we're building things correctly. But for the first story, I love the idea of an oversized book at the same price as a regular sized book would have been, and to give people that extra value and realize they get something to fun with it. And the 48 page, the one shots are actually regular 32 page comics. So they're back down to $3.99 books, also regular ones.
All right. So I know that everyone will want to know more, and the best way to know more is to follow you guys on social media, as you guys post out surprise things like, pages like Joe just showed us. So Joe, where's the best place social media wise for people to follow you?
We actually have a website, which is frankmillerpresents.com. And we'd be posting material up there pretty regularly. We actually have, I've been using in Previews catalog. I actually have a company page, which is called Keep It Under Your Hat, which is basically giving you behind the scenes at Frank Miller Presents. We're working with some other folks to create what we're calling What's What pages. So you get down breakdowns on all the characters, so their backstories as well. And we're having fun. It's all little goofy things that we enjoy about comics. We're bringing to it, but we're putting our spin on it and making it as fresh as possible, which is great.
I love it.
Yeah, we're all on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah,
we're not on the new ones yet. Okay.
I've been trying over the weekend.
I'm an Instagram, Facebook guy. I'm still lucky I know how to turn on the computer.
I have a Twitter, but I don't use it. So yeah,
you guys are so funny.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else you guys want to say? Because we're gonna reset to get to talk about Ronin 2 next.
Yeah, no, we're good. This is good. We gotta, like I said, this is fun for me. Got to see the guys and get a chance to talk about the book. But I think I'm excited to see what everybody thinks of it once they get a chance to buy it and get it in their hands. And we're looking forward to people coming in and getting excited about the world we're building. There's a lot of love in what's going on here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe and Danilo. I'm so appreciative. I know all of our viewers are thrilled to pieces that you guys got to come on and talk. We love you guys. Thank you for everything you do for comic books.
Thanks, guys. I'll be in touch with you guys soon too.
Okay, boss. Thanks for having us, Jen.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Right. We're gonna take a quick break and come right back.
This is The Experience.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey there, hi there, hello there. You're as welcome as can be.
Hi, I'm Nancy McCann. Welcome to Friday Night Live on The Experience.
Welcome everybody to Fat Jack's Comic Crib. Brendan, Al, Jason, hanging out.
There I am. Welcome back to Kicking It with Henry, folks. I am your host, Henry Kumpa. It's great to be here with you guys.
So we are going to talk about books that are in stores this week.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mishmash.
Hello, and welcome to the Black Comics Universe, presented by Peep Game Comics.
And you gotta love it that the first people in the minute to skim it are creators.
Up, everybody! Welcome to another Wednesday Warriors. My name is Joey Galvez, and this is my pal Ambrosia.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to Space Cadets.
Hey!
What's up?
Welcome, everyone, for another episode of I Must Ask You a Question.
Hi, everybody! Welcome to Nerd News Now.
Hey, this is Rex. Welcome to Comic Collectibles.
Hey, hello, all you happy people. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show.
Everybody is welcome. This is the crazy show that we do on Thursdays called What's in the Box? What's in the Box?
Comic culture and sales.
Hello, I am Dirk Manning, the writer of books such as Tales of Mystery, and I am super excited for you. I'm almost jealous because you, my friend, are watching The Experience.
Everybody, and welcome back to Talkin' Shop, where we have been working hard on these kinds of awesome show contents for you for more than a year and a half. And to that end, and for the hard work of our production team and everybody else here at The Experience, we would love it if you would share what we are doing with people you think might enjoy this kind of programming. We're going at it every single day, so you guys have fresh new content to know what's going on in the world of comic books and other things related. All right, welcome back. We're going to get down to all the cool things and news about Ronin 2. Welcome back, Dan, Philip Tan, and Daniel Enriquez.
There they are. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, first, Jen, I'm sorry, because I know that we were originally going to have Frank join us here right now, but unfortunately had a personal issue come up. So he sends his apologies for not being able to join us. I'm sitting in with these guys just to make sure they don't say anything they're not supposed. No, I'm kidding. But I know that Frank is very excited, and he'll be back to you with some other stuff soon. Hopefully, you get on really fast. But I know that was important. But anyway, here we are. I'm excited talking Ronin 2, but then again, I'm always excited talking anything Frank Miller presents these days. But these are the true creators here, so I'm going to turn it over to you and them, and I get to be a little bit of a spectator on this one too.
So I'm super excited about this book. I will be the first to admit that of all of Frank's work, I'm the least familiar with Ronin, which I know is ridiculous because that's the one everyone talks about all the time. But for some reason, the way I cycled into comic books in 1992 meant that that was not the one that I glommed onto. I was the generation of Dark Knight and of 300 and all of those kinds of Sin City and all those kinds of crazy cool things. But the ash can. So this is for my way of saying to all of you that are out there watching, if you are not familiar with it, if you jump into this book, you will be just fine. You don't have to know anything to really love it from the get-go. If you've read the Ash Can, you've kind of gotten a little bit of taste of what's going on. But the book series is just so beautiful. You're on. You got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. I was on my phone, so I figured everyone's quiet.
Yeah, no.
Oh no.
We saw you disappear and started talking about you, Philip.
So obviously when Frank and Dan and everyone started thinking about what the next project was, this was something that clearly was a high demand or high wish list item. How did the subject get broached?
Well, actually, it was Frank and I were talking. We're trying to figure out things to do together, and he was actually asking me if I wanted to. As the story goes, and we change the story every time, so this is the version we're doing right now. So this is the what happened was that he asked me if I wanted to do something with him at DC. I said I don't think DC would want me to be your editor on that project, but if you got the rights back from Ronin, I'd love to do that with you, but not for another company. I want to build a company around it. And that was the start of the conversation. And then, Philip and I, we've known each other, worked together for a long time here. And
we work at the diner
together. And I think Philip is one of the best talents in the business, without a doubt. We talked about it. And I think then I'm going to turn it over to Philip about how you got involved in Ronin. And because I know you were a little excited about it, to say the least.
Well, I think it goes all the way back. And you have to forgive me for saying this, Dan. I mean, I've always pestered Dan about doing some characters at DC that he will never approve, and he would just always tell me that it's really not going to be the right fit for you, and fast forward to after Dan and Frank talked about it, and Dan just out of nowhere asked, "You still want to work with Frank Miller?" And I was like, "Yeah," But it was very surprising, and I was very excited when I hear Dan ask me if I'm interested working with Frank, and to think that Dan and Frank thought of me first, that was extremely flattering.
Okay, I cannot let your comment earlier go by. What characters did you have a true love of that you wanted to touch?
Oh, no. You don't want to know.
He still asks me to do it, and I say, I'm not there anymore. But let me say, I want to contextualize what Philip just said, because he said it's so nice, but you had to watch this unfolding in real time. Philip's excitement to work with Frank. So he's basically saying he wants to go to the studio.
I really want to know.
He wants to go to Frank's studio, and he goes, I'm going to sleep on the floor, and I want to take it all in. I want to be there. I want to stay there. And it's all, and Frank's being nice, and Selene Thomas is being nice, our other partner in the company. Philip leaves the call, and they're like, he's not going to really want to sleep on the floor. And I'm like, no, he really wants to sleep on the floor.
I figured.
And they're like, it's okay if we need him. Do we need security when he's around?
Philip, did you imagine just curling up underneath the drafting table? Or?
I was ready to say, if the floor needs to be presentable for your guests, I'll take the bathroom.
So, oh no, Brainy, sorry, you missed the pizza. The buffet's closed. Talk about what the collaboration looks like. What does the creative process look like when moving into this?
Well, okay, I'll start. So one thing that we wanted to make sure was, when Dan brought up Ronin, and I expressed to Dan and Frank about why Ronin is important for me. I mean, everyone loves Frank's Daredevil and Batman and all these masterpieces that he's done, and surprisingly, maybe to some people, Ronin was my favorite. Is my favorite. It's the book where Frank went through 6 different styles in each and every single issue. And still be able to tell a smooth flowing a narrative of the entire concept and the story and the characters, as a perfect package. You can't pick out another creator changing their style, changing their techniques and everything about their storytelling in one single project, and still create a masterpiece. And this is it for me, and when we wanted to, when Frank and Dan and I were talking about it in the beginning stages, I just wanted to have something so different from what we are seeing out there right now. You know, I told both of them that I have an idea, and it would mean that we're gonna have to go back into the old school look of having black and white and screen tones and all these other things. And well, in reality, I just want to make sure that no one can do it, so Daniel and I will have job security. But I'm just joking. Well, it wasn't easy, you know. Joking aside, to be able to get that, and again, Dan, you have to forgive me. I'm going to say this again. It took Daniel and I the entire year to make sure we nailed down the first issue. Well, not even the first issue, to nail down the look. And what's funny is you always hear about, learning from a legend, learning from a experienced creator about how they do their craft. And it wasn't until we started working with Frank where I understood, okay, when people talk about not overworking your things, that perfect, not trying to do the perfect artwork. It was not as easy when you're just reading it from an interview, from an article. It's when you're doing it with them, and what Frank really shared with us, and it really gave us that. I mean, thanks to Dan, we had that whole year bought for us to absorb this thing. Is knowing how far you can go without overworking it, but maintaining that quality. We're not in the business of just making sure that as long as we have pencils and inks, it's going to go out the door and the story will carry it. No, it's not. And Daniel and I have this really a proud feeling of what people are going to get from Ronin 2. Every single page is it's not exaggeration that there is blood, sweat, and tears in every single page, because it's going to look very different. To the point where, because there were no people or teachers to teach us, okay, what kind of screen tones are you going to have to use, and because you're using digital on certain things and traditional on certain things, what are the dot distances, all kinds of stuff. No one does that right now. So Daniel and I have to kind of like figure those out with Frank's guidance to make sure that we're still getting that whole old school Lone Wolf and Cub manga feel. A lot of the newer samurai stuff like Blade of the Immortal that Frank loves, but at the same time distinctively Frank, Philip, and Daniel. So that took a while to develop, and the first issue is like a year. The second issue, is taking us maybe 2 to 3 months, and the third issue, even though it's 48 pages, is hopefully just 1 month. And that's how we're gonna do it.
I'm hoping that too, schedule-wise.
Daniel, talk a little bit about...
Actually, 48 pages in 1 month is actually faster than a regular comic book.
Yeah,
it is.
I found it very interesting that Philip was talking about style and what we're trying to achieve and being different and everything. And I think that is so true that even up to today, I usually don't know what we're doing on each page. Because Philip is like, we just did a cover recently. He's like, I have these ideas for the tones, and it's going to be like this and like that. And I'm like, that's great. Now, how do I do that? Because barely like a year and a half, I had never even done tones in my life. I had never used Zippo tones, especially in how we are doing now. So like Philip said, it's really been like learning on the job and getting...
You can't give out our secret. We have this drug that we take to make sure that, we
right.
just go on this zombie mode and create these images.
I am very proud of the look that we got, and it was a lot of trial and error, and it really was learning a lot. And like, even we were like on a lot of Zoom meetings, all of us. My personal like influences as far as art goes, it always came down to very detailed artwork. So for me, it was like, as many lines. If I get a page to ink that has 10 lines, it's going to leave my hands with 15 or 20. And then being on these like Zoom calls with Philip and Frank, and when they're talking about the energy of like just white spaces and letting the page breathe and using the tones to do that, and I felt truly like I was in a master class in every single one of those meetings.
But I have to add something here, guys, also, because one of the things I want to say is that Philip, the interesting thing is when Frank started working on the book, he was doing thumbnails, but then as the art started to come in, he started to do much more fuller layouts. And you can start to see this. We've been posting some of the pictures of Frank's. He's doing inked layouts right now. So actually they were producible themselves, but he loves what these guys are doing so much that when it came Frank's turn to do the variant cover for the first issue, Frank looked at it and goes, I'm not up to the same pace that the guys are inside the book. And actually, we had to call Daniel and to basically do the inks and tones on Frank's work. He wanted Daniel to do what he was doing to Philip's art, to his own art. And that was just a testament on how much he loves what these guys are doing. And I had to call up Daniel, and we were out of time. I had to call him, like, can you ink Frank's cover? And I'm like, and I think if I only said an hour to do it, I think he would have done it anyway.
No, definitely.
In reality, Daniel and I are on a Dan's payroll to make sure that Frank can end at the end of Ronin 2, Frank will be able to draw and write his own thing, 4 books a month or something. Dan was just trying to make sure we can push Frank in that direction.
Yeah.
No, and for me, like when I got that call, it was like, yes, now let's go. Doesn't matter the time. And actually, Frank did the inks. I mainly did the Zipotones, and I touched up some stuff with a little bit of fear, because the way that I do Zipotones, it usually meshed with a lot of texture. But I was like, this is Frank's work, so what am I doing here? But it was an amazing experience, and I'm really, really happy that we got to do it. And I think the look came together, even though Frank's style is so different from Philip's. I think it really comes together with the book. Everything comes together really well.
Yeah.
Daniel, is there a lot of other differences between, other than Zipatone, in inking things that are meant to be only black and white as opposed to colors? Or are there other big tips you can give?
I feel a lot more pressure, to be honest, even though when I was just doing regular freelance inking per se, I've always felt, regardless if there was a colorist, that I wanted to leave it at a point that it could go to print like that and everything would be perfectly, understandable. But right now it actually ends with me, and I'm doing, again, heavy Zipotones, which I've never done before. So I do feel a lot more responsibility, but at the same time, there's also a joy in it, and knowing that there will be no more changes to it. And I love working with colorists. They've done amazing stuff over the work that I've done with other pencilers too, but there's something about knowing that this is how it's going to end that I enjoy a lot too. And the thing is, it doesn't just end with me, because Philip will send me the pencils, I will do inks, Zipotones, whatever it's necessary, and then I throw it back to him. Before it goes back to final stage, Philip always sees it too, in case we need to add something, we need to change. Sometimes there might be changes like, no, this actually works better like this. So there's even that camaraderie within the art in itself, that it's actually warm and reassuring that the work's going to come out fine, because we always go back and forth with everything.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I do think that Dan was able to help us on the credits. It's just I just wanted to put art by Philip and Daniel. It's really not just one artist's work at this point. When we talk about, and when you ask about the tips that Daniel can give, especially with Zipotones, it's that our collective experience. We have to always look at how far the dots are. Are they creating moire patterns? All these different things that I'm gonna guess 99% of creators right now don't really care about. Because we have such advanced technologies in printing right now. Those are issues that was from a few decades ago. But then again, if you're trying to recreate that look, it would be something you have to worry and think about right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned earlier Lone Wolf and Cub as kind of an inspiration, because I don't know if why my brain went to that when looking at the book was kind of like the carrier style of the child. Because she's carrying him around. I don't know if that was what made me think about it, but I'm assuming now it's because of the art style. You guys intended it.
Well, that was the meeting with Frank and Dan. We sat down and I was super excited. I was overexcited actually. So I asked Frank. I asked Dan first. What did Frank want to do? And Dan says, "Oh, you can ask him yourself later." And when I asked Frank, he's like, "Lone Wolf and Cub. I want to tell my Lone Wolf and Cub." You know, and you know, and that was on a meeting, and you know, we haven't really met each other. I mean, that was during the pandemic, and it wasn't until 5 months later where Frank was doing a show, doing some kind of a signing locally, that we met up. And by then, that's when I brought in a lot of the more recent samurai stuff that I like. And Frank's like, "Oh my God, you know, let's do part Lone Wolf and Cub, and the other parts are influenced by all these other new things." You know, so I think it's a very different animal right now. It's kind of unfair to say it's just going to be a Lone Wolf and Cub. You know, it's still a 99% Frank's Ronin. You know, you can't mistake the elements, the monsters, the tech, the goo, all these cyberpunk things are all in there. It's just that it's got a little inspiration from Frank's love of the original Lone Wolf and Cub material.
Yeah,
you can definitely feel it. Well, I'm so excited for everyone to be able to jump into this this big universe that I believe is being made for all of the projects you guys are thinking about doing for Frank Miller Presents. And I really want everyone to make sure that they stay in touch with their local comic shops, to let them know that they want to have these books on the shelf, because as everybody knows, comic book stores only have so many spaces on shelves, and they rely on you to say what your interests are, and that's where they're going to make space for it. If you guys talk to them and call them and email them and say you absolutely must have space on the rack for these books going forward, because we want to have them, we want to buy them. Yeah. You should absolutely do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in right now too, because this is important for me to say, is that we're really creating these books to be read and enjoyed. That's the bottom line. Everything we're doing is about making the interior of the books the selling point, not a variant cover, and not something that might be deemed to be a script somewhere else down the road. We want people to have fun and enjoy and get the entertainment value of what the comics are about. And when I look at the art that these two gentlemen are creating inside this book, I could tell you straight honestly that every page of that book is better than every other cover that is on the stands that people are purchasing at this moment in time. It's just an absolute work of beauty. And I get excited every time I open up and see the artwork that's been created, and there's a great story around it. And our goal is to constantly build an audience. If we start slow, that's the plan. We're not here trying to over-excite and over-pump up a first issue and watch it collapse. We want to build an audience. We want to build that loyalty, and we want to be there for people month in and month out with our stories and get people excited about what's going on. And Frank and I are committed to that. As part of the company, both Frank and I have agreed to bring one new property in each a year. We'll probably bring in more, but right now our focus is on these books. And that's why Ronin is the centerpiece of Frank Miller Presents. It shows us just the history and quality material that he's created in the past, but done in a completely new, exciting way that really moves us into the future. We're not just going to be constantly just resting on nostalgia to feed our material, but quite honestly, we're really pushing everything forward in ways that hopefully people haven't seen it before, or more importantly, it's what people want to see in a comic, and we're finally presenting it and giving it to them. So that's what I'm excited about, is being able to finally get to a spot where we sort of put our money where our mouth is and let the craft speak for itself, and hopefully deliver types of books that people are hungry for and want to see. So fingers crossed, but hopefully we get out there. Geek Solo Series by 2026? Sure.
I do want to reiterate that having seen the entire first issue that you guys are going to see on the rack on Wednesday, that what they're saying about this art is not just kind of like an exaggeration of the truth. It is truly, you will want to have this book, honestly, to like frame. It would be hard to choose which pages to do that with, but really and truly it is.
Can I add something and to kind of tangent from your and Dan's what you just said is the initial idea from Frank and that got me super excited for the first issue of Ronin was the entire book. You can chop them up and connect every single double spread, and it would be like a continuous action from much like the ending of Seven Samurai, and that was Frank's. Frank was really excited about that until we figured maybe that wasn't going to be that easy to do. But it's in a way it was still structured that way. So when you see everything that's in double spreads and whatnot, you really can just I hope you don't cut your comic books, but you can cut them up and put them like that, and it will change.
And buy a second one. That's the publisher.
That's right. Dan, come on, don't
You can buy 2 comics. You can buy 2 books for the interior. You can do it.
You can buy 3, 1 to keep.
1 to give.
There you go.
After all, it is that part of the holidays.
Yes, it is.
Yep. All right, everybody. Make sure that you go and sign up for newsletter for Frank Miller Presents, and make sure you get to see that cool new content that they're going to be giving you, the behind the scenes stuff and the things that they know that you guys want to see. They know what they're doing. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate. You have no idea how much a thrill this was for me and for all of our viewers. They're super stoked. They'll never come down.
Pleasure.
Great. Well, thanks again, and I can't wait for everybody to get these books on Wednesday. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks again for everything.
Holiday.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Before we move on, Zainin, I hope you're listening right now, and I hope, obviously I know Kyle is, and I hope Jason is, because both of these gentlemen were named. But before we move forward, I do, because Wordman is not here, but he was nice enough to send us what he refers to as Wordman's Thankful Fat Jack's Show List. And I did want to read this because for any of you who have watched us for a while, you will get a lot of these jokes. But for me personally, it really made my night when I read these. Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about purpose, and I wonder why we do things, and why do I do this other than to sell comics and stuff like that. But anyone can tune into anything and buy comics and stuff like that. And every now and again, I forget that one of the best things about what we do here every Sunday night is we get to know each other, and we get to remember that we're not alone, and that there are like-minded people out there who are happy and grateful and thankful that you exist and that we exist. So I wanted to quickly read Wordman's Thankful Fat Jack Show List, and then we will try to, or I will try to sell some Swamp Things. So here we go, real quick. First one, I'm thankful for this show airing on Sunday evenings, the only time of the week I'm 90% certain to be home. All right. Zainin, this one's for you, buddy. I'm thankful Zainin is in the chat, and that his nickname, Lord Zainin, makes him sound like a Flash Gordon villain. This is a funny one. I don't know if it's funny because, anyway, I'm thankful for Brendan's Invisible Rogues Gallery, Robot Marshall, The Ghost of Al, Roland Vale, The Greg Hole, etc. I'm thankful for $9 shipping. So I am just to let you know, we start at $9 shipping. Just, heads up. I'm thankful for newsstands. In quotations. Sorry, Jason. This one's for you, Kyle. This is a good one. I am thankful for producer Kyle's booming voice of God during the show, for he sits much closer to his mic than Brendan does his. because Brendan didn't have really a mic. I'm thankful for claim bombs, key rings, and story bundles. I'm thankful for someone who is out there enabling my love of Charlton, Ditko, and Cardiac. And this one cracked me up. And I imagine a lot of you will probably agree with Gary. I'm thankful for the 20-minute break I get every show when Brendan decides to tell us about Grant Morrison for the first time. And I'm thankful to have something to do Sunday evenings. If it wasn't for this show, I might be productive and get some writing done. We wouldn't want that to happen. Gary, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to write up something like that. That really made my day.